Alright, so I didn't like Napoleon. This film put me to the test, honestly. It's 2 hours and 38 minutes, but feels like 4 hours. I never check my phone at the cinema, but for this, I had to. There is just no connective tissue. The scenes in this don't flow into one another. It doesn't create a compelling narrative, but instead is a disjointed mess. I couldn't get invested in this character or this story. The most engaging part of the film for me was the love story between Napoleon and Josephine, but unfortunately it doesn't take up too much screen time. The first half did more for me than the second half. The more it went on, the less interested I became, which is disappointing, especially when the texture of this is so visceral. The costume design, set pieces, and cinematography is incredible here. The battle scenes were a true marvel and felt beautifully cinematic. The Battle of Austerlitz stood out to me and involved some amazing visuals of the artillery firing into the water, which became infected with the red of blood and filled with the bodies of soldiers. Visually, this movie was stunning. That's not an issue here. The technical elements really are not a problem, and that's expected when you have a movie of this size, budget, and the legendary director attached, Ridley Scott. One of the many problems is just that it's trying to cover so much information that by the end it spread so thin that you feel like there was no purpose. It just makes me wonder what was the point. The story did nothing for me. The only thing I felt at the end was relief that it was over. It's just not compelling. The performances were good for the most part. Vanessa Kirby was great in the little she had to do, and Joaquin Phoenix had me conflicted. I liked it but didn't love it. I just don't think this depiction of Napoleon worked for me. The performance itself wasn't bad, but instead the opposite. It was carried by his performance. This version, however, had little depth, to me at least. He came across as a silly little man who was the best at what he did, and that was all I got from it. It does a good job of breaking down the legend and unveiling the man, but we just didn't get enough. The lack of a French accent is a weird choice, but is a choice the movie sticks to, as there are many historical inaccuracies. It isn't something the film shies away from, but embraces. People are calling Napoleon a character study, but as a character study, I just didn't find it that interesting. I don't think it really delved into what it could have, and tried to tackle over 30 years of events rather than dissecting the character's psyche. I understood that he was a petty man, but ultimately it was not complex. Not really. The battle scenes, like I said before, were cinematically excellent, but lack any kind of emotion. By the end you become less invested as you've seen it all before, and have no real stake in the battles. We don't care if he wins or loses. They're cool but can't sustain an almost 3-hour runtime. We've had so many long movies this year, but this went by the slowest. Nothing keeps this movie afloat. Lots of scenes are just conversations with higher-ups about the state of France. Oppenheimer was similar to this, but was one of my favourites of the year, and was very engaging, yet somehow this isn't. The writing just isn't good, it's flat. The romance had somewhat of a spark, but didn't have enough of a presence to really have much of an impact. I really cannot recommend this. To the average moviegoer who doesn't care about the technical craft here, there really is nothing to enjoy about it. Even I didn't enjoy much about it. The positives are pretty much purely technical. I respected a lot of this film, but it really was a slog to get through. Napoleon is a mess, and is a movie some will love, but most won't. For my score, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. This is because by the end I truly couldn't stand any more of this. There isn't anything which holds your attention. It isn't gripping or fascinating in the slightest. Ridley Scott is a legendary director, and that part shines through. The style is incredible, but lacks any depth or substance that keeps you invested. Napoleon himself is presented as human. He has flaws and issues, but I just didn't find it engrossing. And it's not funny enough to be classed as a comedy like some people are calling it. So ultimately, this film had nothing for me. I can respect parts of it, but can't call it a good film. Thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe for some more film content. I guess that's goodbye for now.